just me and Jack today. Dave's off. He ain't in, well, he probably is in a beer garden, but he's got a little holiday, so he ain't got his laughter love today. But anyway, you got me and Jack. It won't be as fun, but let's have a laugh anyway. We're going to carry on with the rust on the rear end. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do in a little bit with that, but whilst we're doing that as well, I've got one of the wings out of here, which obviously I'm going to strip, obviously this bump strip off. Obviously these bump strips have got like a piece of metal in, I think, so if you go and pull them off, it distorts all the bump strips, and obviously to try and get these bump strips now you can't get hold of. I think on that car, when they painted it, that's what they've done, and they've damaged all the bump strips, so it's all wiggly. So we're going to try and get some, like how we took the windscreen out, get the like wire down the back and chop that off, drill the pop rivets on that for the skirt, obviously take this badge off so everything's off this wing. And then I've been online, you know it's serious business when I put some big rubber gloves in there. So this is like a paint stripper, like an industrial, well, motor body paint stripper. Packaged very well anyway. But I'll send it for the post, so yeah. Paint stripper gel, so obviously I think I've watched a couple of videos how you use this stuff. We're going to give it a try and see if it's going to work or do what we want it to do. The main bits, what I was worried about, because obviously this is red, you want to get all the paint off this, because to do it properly you've got to get this off. If it was in moonstone it'd be fine, you could have it flatted down and you can paint it, but like I said before in previous videos, if you get any stone chips it's going to show through. So we want to try and get this all stripped off, but the main things are, you could sand this back and you do that and you get there, but the trouble is it's in these sort of areas, like around the indicator and stuff like that, you're going to struggle getting a sander in, or it's going to take you forever. So hopefully, fingers crossed, same with down here, it's going to be hard to get in, this stuff will strip it back to bare metal, which will make our lives 10 times easier, but let's see. So I think we've got to apply that with a paintbrush. You're supposed to use some plastic, like shrink wrap or something like that. You put that over it and that holds the moisture in, because if you let it go dry then it doesn't really work and it won't scrape off. So we're going to give this a go. We've never used it before, so we'll give it a go today, see how far we get with that. But whilst we're doing that as well, I'll go in and show you. Obviously you've probably seen we've got the other bit cut out on the rear here. Obviously on the other videos you've seen obviously where it's rotted through, so now obviously we've unstitched all that, got that out, got the new piece to go in. But what we need to do, which I'm not worried about it because we can get it sorted, this axle, if I cut this out now, there's no correct position of where that's supposed to be. We've got this on here so we can go off that as a waypoint for that, but it's not going to be a complete true one. You could be out by a millimetre or whatever. If I do the same with this, you could be slightly out, which would have your axle then would be slightly across or slightly twisted, and obviously you don't want that. So what we're going to do is, you can use timber or steel as long as it's a good piece of straight timber. We're going to obviously drill a hole this end for the bolt, and we're going to kind of use that, because obviously we're not removing that, as a positioning point. So once that's bolted up there, that'll be marked, and that's obviously then the distance from there to there will be exactly the same, because it's got to be. So the same thing will happen there, and that will give us, when the bolt's in for our new, what would you call it? It is a nut, but it's like a body secured nut, which is fixed to the body. That'll position it in the correct position in this new chassis leg piece. So then what else we're going to do, obviously, so we've got the distance from there to there with this, and then what we're going to do, a position from here to here, which you're probably going to say, well, you've removed that, we ain't got that now, but we have, because we've got it on there, obviously them two plates, and we put the new bushes in the rear axle. We've got a point from there to there, because that isn't going to change, so that'll be made, so that's got our position from there to there, and then there to there. So that will be 100% in the correct position. So when you bolt your axle back up, for one, the bolt holes line up to the nuts, the insert nuts, and everything's all square on the vehicle. So if I went and cut this out now, I'd be a bit stupid because I haven't got a waypoint to go off, where this is all original Ford positioning points. So I mean, a lot of people, if you've seen, or people who've done repairs, they've probably just cut that out and just guessed it, and it would be fine, but you could be a fraction out, which would, then you get bad tyre wear and stuff like that, where it feel like it's crabbing down the road. So fingers crossed this ain't crabbing down the road. No, it'll be fine. So we're going to do that. Whilst we're doing that, we're going to do the wing as well. So if that all goes to plan, we've got the other wing to strip, and then obviously we've got the roof panel to strip as well. So that hopefully will all come back to bare metal, and then we can just prime it temporary, because we're going to need the wings when we start on the front end and getting all the legs in and everything. We need to tack everything in position, use the wings, get them in position, so everything is 100% lined up. So that's what we're going to do today. Well, not the front end, but the rear bit and the wings, hopefully.
Looking like Walter White here. About to
Who's Walter White?
a Breaking Bad.
Oh yeah, bit of liquid meth.
About to do me.
Crystal meth, sorry, not
Can't
liquid
see,
meth.
look. I'm fogging.
Well, you know, it's health and safety. They don't want you. They don't want you to see your
to
death.
see what you're doing.
They don't want you to see your own death.
Right. Let's see what this shit does.
Stop swearing on YouTube, Jack. The idea with this cling filmy stuff, it kind of keeps the moisture trapped in, and I recommend leave it probably 15 minutes to do its work. Obviously peel all the plastic back off, get your scraper then, give it a good scrape, and what would you say how to get it off? Like scrape it and then scrape it off with a bit of sponge or something like that, wipe it down.
Cloth or something.
Or cloth, yeah, cloth with some thinners on or something to clean it up after. But like I say, we'll hit it with this attempt now. And obviously then you can, I don't know, jack it up, get the camera in a minute, it's already starting to crinkle all up. So, but apparently the aim of the game is keep it moist.
Yeah.
I'd say. Don't let it dry out. I think that's what, when it'll just go hard again, it just turns back into hard paint then. I think what it is, it's obviously started to break it up. So we'll go again, see what it does, and obviously it just needs to, obviously then, I think the aim of the game is it's got to penetrate all the way through, hasn't it, the paint. So I think if we get a bit more on now. Basically, like I said, we're going to make a bracket to go in between, which I've already done. I'll quickly show you that. With this piece of timber. Well, I'll show you this bit first. It's the pattern bit for obviously when the bolt sticks in there, which I'll show you all when I get it all together. And then I had the bolt in there, and that was sitting on there like that. So all I did is get the hammer, hit it, so it made an impression in that. Obviously I've drawn a circle around that, so when that's all bolted up, there's me on my tiptoes so I can't see, but that will sit bang on in the middle of that. Same that end. So then obviously I've got this piece now which is going to go in between, it says in between the body, which I've left it nice and snug, nice and tight. So if I did this loose, it could move either way, left or right, so I've left it tight, so when I mark all this up to drill the holes, there's no way of getting it out that way. So obviously that's doing its job left to right, and then obviously that pattern there from there to there is doing it back to front, so it keeps all the axles square. So what I'm doing now to get the perfect measurement between the bolt holes is I'm going to put the rear bushes in, measure between them, and that'll give its measurement for the spacing for when I do them holes. So once that's all drilled and all done, that axle is going to bolt straight up into the correct position. So we've got a poly bush set for this. So obviously poly bushes are easier to go in. This is one I did earlier, but some poly bushes come in two halves, so you'll push the bush through that way and that way because it's split in two, say, which is a lot easier. But where this one, it has to be physically pushed through. Leave the centre metal collar out, but you've still got to force it through that hole, which you're not going to do with your bare hands. Well, you probably aren't, you are if you're stronger than me, but you need to kind of push it through, pop it through. So they supply with this assembly grease. So obviously I've just greased that edge now, then I'm just going to grease around this. You don't have to put loads on it, but you know what I mean, every little helps at the end of the day. So whack that on there, just run it round with my finger. And then what I've done, you can probably get, well, I know you can get specialist tools that that will pull these bushes through, but obviously I ain't got nothing like that. So but I've used my initiative. Is it initiative?
Initiative, yeah.
Initiative. I can't even.
Initiative.
I know the word, but I can't say it. Yeah, that one. And I've come up with I think it's just an engine, a head bolt off an engine. Can't remember what it's off. Anyway, got a nut, what I screw on, got a bit of a washer. So what I'm going to do, obviously shove that through the bottom of the bush, plonk me washer and me nut on there. So I mean, you don't have to use timber, you could use metal or whatever. And then obviously I've just got these little spacers I'll just do that up a little bit more if it will. Little spacers, because obviously when this pulls through, that's got to stick through, so obviously that spacers off. And the one I did that side worked perfect, so this one, what we're filming, isn't going to work perfect, it's going to be a nightmare. But I just kind of whack them in there like that, and then I just tighten that up. So then if you look from underneath, that leaves that gap for the bush to kind of pop through. So then obviously I've got just a deep socket now, fingers crossed this is going to work first time, but I'll just tighten the nut, that tightens down on that, and that literally closes that gap up, pulls the bush through. And it literally just pops in like that. Like I said, I've just made that up. Obviously, you could use, well you can't, the standard bolt, because it's not long enough, so you need something a bit longer, like a threaded bar or just an old head stud or whatever you got lying round. It's got to be longer, so it gives you enough, obviously, to pull down and pull the bush in and pop it in. So then all you've got then is this centre collet bit, which once that's in, it stiffens all that bush up, and obviously your bolt then sits through that. And I've just whacked a bit of grease on it. Like I said, it just makes your life easier by putting this assembly grease on, which obviously Powerflex have provided with the whole kit. So you get that with, you don't just get that little satchel for the whole lot. And then like I say, that just pushes in by hand. And they've even, because you'll have a look in a sec, underneath, that's flush. So that finishes flush there, and then if you remember when we took the axle off, that's the part what got stuck in the car. So they've even left that bit on, so that's like a location bit. This is why you've got to get them bits completely right, because they won't bolt up. That'll bear on the side. If you get that out of sync slightly, it's going to cause you a bit of issue. So that should then go into the new part of the chassis leg, and that will locate nicely and bolt all up mint. So what we're going to do now, because we've got obviously both of these fitted, I'm going to take a measurement from the centre point to centre point, mark that on my timber, do an inner and outer, so we've got it all completely bang on. And then obviously, like I said, I've left that timber long, so that fits between the body of the car. So we then know, because obviously we've left that mounting point in, the original mounting point, so that's going to be in the correct position, and then that measurement from there to there is going to be the correct position for that one. You may say, oh, why didn't you do this from the start? Because we've never done this before, but we've realised and thought, actually, we need to, really, it's best to do it all from the start. But don't worry if you don't, as long as you've got something to go off, and the mounting point, which we have there, you can work back off that, if you understand what I mean. So, yeah, we're going to get that piece of timber marked up now, so then, like I say, if you didn't use that bit of timber that overlaps, you could get this axle in the wrong sort of position. So your axle could sit slightly to the left, sit slightly to the right. But obviously it won't, because we're working off the body. So yeah, fingers crossed, all goes to plan. It'd be sweet as a nut, bolt up, job done. And the other thing is, like I said about the bushes, this is the heritage pack, so they come black. It's not, you can get a black series, which are like a gloss black, but these are like a mattish grey black, so it will match and the look original. And we've got obviously this bush kit for the whole car, which obviously Powerflex supply and do. If you go on obviously their website and stuff and email them, they do a bush kit for a 2-wheel, and they do a bush kit for a 4-wheel drive, and they do the bush kit for the 3-door. Because obviously 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive are not completely different, but there's a lot of stuff what's different on the car, so make sure you get the right kit. So obviously I've got that timber there ready to go, which obviously fits in between this inner sill section, more or less wedged between that. So I'm going to take a point, obviously I've got this to go off as my like a data line point. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to measure off this inner sill to the centre of this bolt hole. What I'm going to do, I'm going to plonk the subframe bolt in. It's 21.6 to the centre of that. So if I just mark that and go that side of that mark. So now, from there, I need to measure between on that axle. So centre there to centre there is 92. So that's the centre mark that end, and then I'll see 92 is there. I mean, this is being very like precise. There is a give or take in this. You know what I mean? What we don't want to be is, say, 10 mil out, which you'd be the axle will be 10 mil over that way. So obviously we're keeping everything within kind of specs. So this would be more or less, well, it will be absolutely bang on. So now I can drill a hole there, drill a hole there. I'll use that bracket, bolt that up. That should go through that bracket. So it's not as if we're just guessing still, because we've still got this bracket in this position, and obviously we can see the markings on this bracket section, like the box section of this bracket. You can see where this bracket previously lined up, which you'll probably see better on this side. You can see markings like there and there, so we can go off them markings, and that's where that bracket was bolted up. When we plonk this up now, so it's a nice tight fit on the hole. Gun it up. Here all day.
You're looking tan today, mate.
Yeah, I've been on holiday and then a bit of back garden. So, right, that's screwed into that. That's hard on that side of the body. Same with that. And then we get this bolt here. So that's saying that's off there. Oh, I think that's bent.
It's definitely bent, isn't it? But
yeah. What's that there? Obviously that's there. Obviously that's like that. It more or less, that bolt lines up with that bolt. So that's all in the correct position. That's just thrown off a little bit on that. Oh, I think it's this. You understand what I mean?
yeah.
That plate's definitely bent. So if we went off that originally, we would have been wrong. Let's change that plate up. Let's have a look at that thing. See if that bent back, like that, twisted back, that'll go straight in. Well, it goes straight in anyway, but it'll go in straight. See, obviously we were just going off that before.
That's better, isn't it?
Right, so we've got all this bolted up now, so we're just going to run through and show you what we've kind of done, so we can get this axle pretty much bang on. And for other people what are doing this job, it's worth doing this. I mean, you can just guess it all and it'll work, it'll bolt up, but you could be slightly out. Just doing this little bit of prep before you tackle this job, you're gonna save yourself a lot of hassle or head scratching when you come to try and weld everything back up and get the axle all bolted back up. So obviously this side's still in, so we've used this as like a data mark from there, and then obviously we've got a mark on this timber. So what I did, I kind of got this all in position, hit the bottom with the hammer, and that's put an impression into this timber. You'll more or less see that impression there, that little dimple, and that's where that shock spring turret is. So now if I unbolt this, and then obviously this has been measured out off the axle, which is at 92, which bolts straight through, so that's as if it's the axle, this timber. So if I undo this now, and obviously like I said, we've left this more or less flush with the side of the sill, and I've labelled driver's side, so it always goes in that side, because you could have a slight difference in the sill or anything like that. It all goes in the same way. We're not going to cut this side out yet. We're going to get that other side in and weld it up, and we know then we're going to be all in the right sort kind of position. This point there hasn't moved. Obviously we've bolted that on. That's hard against that side there, so like I said, that's got that point, but this can be forward or backward if we didn't have this. So the front and back would be out, and this kind of, basically all it's doing is squaring it all up, so it's squared it up that way and that way. So when we drop this on now, obviously all I've done is gone, put the bolt in, hold it this sill level, so that is at the sill level, that one's at the sill level, and then that just plonks on there. And if you look at the top, and then that leaves that bolt, if you have a look at that bolt, then you can capture that on the camera or see that. So if I pull all this apart now, so that's our pattern for that in there, left them nice and tight. This, I mean, there's a bit of give in the bolt hole, but literally that slots straight in there. So we know when we put this axle up now, and we've got all that welded in place, it's going to fit perfectly, and it's going to be in the right position. It's not going to be too far left, too far too far right, too far left, or back, forward, or on the slant. So obviously that's where, if you get this wrong, you'd have to get it really wrong, do you know what I mean? But if you got it really wrong, you start wearing your tyres and your car will be crabbing down the road and whatever. You don't want that. So just obviously, if you do this job, have a think about it, kind of mock this up first before you go chopping it all out. Like I said, really we should have done the other side, done all this with both bits in, and but like I said, the right hand side ain't going to be no different to the left hand side, so we've still done it correctly, if you understand what I mean. So, well, we think we've done it correctly anyway, but you may not. Get the axle, get the diff, because I think the diff kind of ties the back end in, so that ties the rear end in, so we can get all that built up onto that axle and we can physically drop it in place before we weld all this up, and obviously cut this out so we can check it all fits. And then when the axle's in, we could even probably take some measurements off the axle to points on the vehicle, so we can double check everything's all in and all square. So that's going to be obviously in another episode, but we've got that sorted now and got that template made up, so we're good to go, aren't we, Jack?
Finally.
So then we've used this paint stripper, what we got offline, which obviously, if anyone's interested, I'll put in the comments or whatever where I had it off and what company, but it seems to work really well. We probably did about, how many, 3 or 4 runs, so we used roughly about half a tub, and that it's about 35 quid, I think that stuff is. So you can buy it in bigger quantities, you get it at a better price, but we thought we'll just get the smallest one we could, which is 5 litres or whatever. Give it a run, see what it's like. But no, this paint was quite thick, and obviously it's got majority of all of it off. I mean, it even had filler there. That whole part was fillered because there was a little dink. It must have been like a smart repair. Like I said, I think this car had a full respray, that burgundy one. But what we was basically worried about is all these parts here. But what we've kind of done, we've used 2 things. We used a scraper, and then we used a little bit of a wire wheel on a brush, on a drill, like a wire brush sort of thing. Me and Jack said we kind of need like an oval one, which probably would work better. But now, this is more or less, if we keep at this, and obviously get like a DA sander, you can go all over this now and more or less get this paint all off. But we would have been here days sanding this down or going through loads of pads. So we're going to use it on the roof as well, we're going to use it on the other wing. So all you got to do is literally tip it on, paint all over it. Like I said, we put the plastic over because there's a lot of fumes what come off it, so it like evaporates, so that holds it all in. I think it just helps with obviously it not evaporating. And then you just do that, brush it all about, leave it 15 minutes, come back to it, have a bit of a scrape. You just got to do that, so it's not hard work. But we're going to leave this one here for now, and we're going to get some sanding pads, a few other attachments for the drill, probably a little thinner scrape so we can get in the little tighter areas. But this panel will be more or less done when we come to do the next job on it, to finish it off. But it's more or less there. It's just a few little areas. Like I said, if you keep scraping at it, it keeps coming off. So, but Jack wants to get back to watch football, so we're going to leave it there. And then, obviously, we've done the bits which we've already showed you on the rear axle, so that's all set up, ready to go to weld all them bits back in. So this week we've got to buy a welder. So we're going to buy that, and then obviously we can get on with all the other bits what we need welding. But in the meantime, we can strip all this down because we need all these panels to drop on the front. So I'm going to look into about priming this because we don't want to leave this. I mean, it looks galvanised, but I don't think they are. But it does look like galvanised, doesn't it, that Jack? And obviously that's that rust what was around the indicator, which obviously we can attack now and get. But I'm happy with it, mate. Are you?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have a tidy up and then go home, have some food, and Jack's going to watch football.
Yep.
Who's playing?
England.
Oh, I don't know anything about football, as you can see.
So, yeah.
They'll lose anyway, mate.
Yeah.
They always do.